We need to shift our mindsets of feeling scared or hesitant to
Mm.
understanding that young people are capable, they're powerful, they have so many good ideas, they are passionate. We do not have to lower the bar for them ever.
Welcome to the Sweet Taboos podcast. This is your favorite mother-daughter duo, Ayan and
Tiffany. We are bringing the sweetness to taboo topics. Stay tuned.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sweet Taboos podcast. This is your host, Ayan Watson, and we have two very special guests today, Hannah Jarman and Rachel Humphrey. Hannah is a woman of all trades. She's been a fourth grade teacher. She's the program manager and director for Tulsa Changemakers and much more. Rachel, on the other hand, is an educator and youth voice advocate with experience teaching fifth grade and much more. Hi, ladies. Good
Hey,
morning.
good morning. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday. Thank you both for joining us today. Our topic is bridging generations, partnering for change. As I was thinking about this topic, different things, subtopics came out, like teacher burnout, since you both have experience in teaching. Leadership is a big part of this conversation, along with education and generations. So I want to ask, why was this so important to talk about? Why is this a taboo topic?
This is a great question. It's actually funny. Rachel in the office the other day was like, I'm really struggling to figure out what we want to focus on because I don't think youth adult partnership should be taboo, you know? And
Yeah.
it's true, right? Like we think the way that we operate every day and the work that we do is really in partnership with young people. So
Right.
specifically kind of that K through 12 grades. And we see young people as pivotal pieces of everything we do every single day in the work that we do. I was looking up some statistics, and about 100,000 Tulsans out of 400,000 Tulsans are under the age of 18. And I think to myself, that's
Mm.
25% of our population in the Tulsa metro who
Mm-hmm.
needs to have a seat at the table if we're truly going to have intergenerational change, if we're going to have communities that really work.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think that those are a couple of things that really came up and why it's important for us in the work that we do. But Rachel, what would you add to that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think oftentimes we think about like different generations. You see like people talk about like generational differences like in like a funny way. Like on
Mm-hmm.
TikToks, lots of people who are like me and someone's mom and they like do like a silly thing together or in like a defensive way, right? Or it's like, well, kids they don't know. And so we're really trying to like talk about it in a way that's like actually like youth and adults should partner because like Hannah said, like they live in community together and that's what community is.
Mm-hmm.
You're totally right. And I think to your point of like either even teacher burnout, right, is one of the topics and things here is like
Mm-hmm.
when we work in partnership with young people as teachers, it is so much easier to find joy and fuel and energy in the work every day. But when we think of students as like our clients, I think we
Mm-hmm.
lose a little bit of the opportunity for true partnership. And so I think the
Mm-hmm.
work that we like Rachel and I get to do every day where I'm working my dream job really
That's
fuels me
good.
because I think of it as a partnership. Yeah, instead of just you know, oh, I'm serving people, right? It's like, no, 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 I'm in partnership. We're working alongside each other. So I think that's really important. And we have to think about that not only like adult to adult, but also youth to adult, adult to elder, elder to youth. Like we got to be thinking about all of our generations if we really want, transformational change in the city and in this country.
Of course. Ooh. Okay, I'm writing things down. Don't mind me. So I think we may start with this first question of why is having access to high quality education so important? You guys work with K through 12, and that's a passion space for you both. And I did pull this question from a bio. So I'm curious to know, why is that so important, and just having the access to it.
Rachel, I'll let you start unless you want
Okay.
me to go.
No, I'm happy to start. I think for me personally, that's something that like is like been ingrained in me since like childhood.
Mm.
It's just like, and I, was afforded a lot of access to education. But then like, I also think about like just being in the classroom with a diverse group of students and like seeing like, okay, like I hate to say like education is an equalizer because like technically it's not actually, but that's
Mm.
the right, right? Like we know the
We
state of
wish it was
well,
that.
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
in its like highest form, right? It truly could be.
Mhm.
And I think that's why it's so important to be like striving for high quality educational experiences and like out of school time education like experiences, right? Like after school programming, leadership programming.
Mm.
I just think about, right, like for me, what was like the thing that helped me to like propel myself, right? It was like experiences with sports, right, which was offered at my school. So I just think about like
Mm.
those access pieces of like how what just giving access to can create for someone.
Oh, right. 100%. Mm.
And I think high quality education teaches us how to be a part of a community. So I think about high quality education as
Mm.
critical thinking skills that help us be civically engaged. I think about our
Mm.
country right now. I think
Yep.
about some of those Facebook comments I see that I'm like, this is just a lapse in like basic civics 101. Like we're just not
Mm.
understanding some like
Mhm.
really base level understandings that I think every person in this country should have access to knowing? And
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
I think about, yeah, high quality education is like how teaches me how to operate in community, in spaces with other people, in relationship with other people.
Mm.
And specifically when it comes to like, I think our current political context, I think any political context, right, is it's important to have those critical thinking skills. And like, yeah, I might never use trigonometry in my daily life, but yeah, actually geometry is one we use a lot. Rachel and I talk about geometry in the office a lot, like a
Really?
proof that
The
we learned in
proof.
like sophomore year.
Yes.
I don't remember how to do it, but I do
Mm.
remember that it was all logic. Like if A, then B, and then if B,
Mhm.
then C, and if C, then D. And it's like that way of thinking is
Mhm.
so important, and learning those different
Mm.
ways of thinking is important. And
Mm.
maybe I don't remember anything about geometry. I don't know angles. I forgot them all. But I do remember like how to think that way,
Yeah.
which I think is really exciting, and I want every young person to feel that excited about education and the way that they get to think every day.
Mhm. Oof. I have a very good question that will come after this one. So, after the access, what should parents do when they don't have access to quality
Mhm.
education for their children? And we all know that there are socioeconomic barriers or whatever the barrier may be. From your point of view as a former teacher and still teaching, what does that approach look like for parents?
Rachel, I'm gonna let you take that as the parent in the room.
Okay. A lot of thoughts.
Sorry.
Yeah,
No,
it's
it's a
good.
great
Good.
question, and it's like putting me in like different because like I'm a
Mhm.
mom as well, so like I like thinking like parent perspective and like all the things I'm like navigating all of it.
Mm.
But I think about um it's like man, this is hard. It's the advocacy piece I think is really
Mm.
where my brain goes to first. I think like, having to like, okay, like if there aren't after school programs at my kid's school and I want my kiddo to like have after school programs, like I can ask questions. I can go talk to the principal and say, hey, and like I can figure out like what are the things that like why aren't there currently after school programs available, why isn't there tutoring happening,
Mm.
and then I can look into community, right, like what community partners are doing this work, right, can I bring that to our school, so like
Mm.
you as a parent can then also become a bridge. It's also like asking your kids like, what do you want? Like, what would you like to see at your school? Right. Like,
Yes.
I'm thinking just like at like a school, as a school site, like example, if there's not, right. Cause like everyone hypothetically has a school that they are able to go to. But what does every school have the same opportunities?
Mhm.
Maybe not. So then how can you as a parent advocate for those opportunities to be at the school site, and what resources are available? That's
Mm.
kind of the thing that came to mind for me first.
Mhm.
Um,
I love that. It's beautifully articulated. Do you have anything to add?
Well, I am not a parent, and I think parenting is the hardest thing that's ever happened in the history of the earth. But I will
100%.
say to Rachel's point, parents are doing so much already, and young
Yeah.
people, students, like can't advocate for themselves too. So as a parent, like maybe it's asking the question of like, hey, what can you do in your day to day like time at school, right? and really positioning the young people as the ones who create the solutions, because I know, again, parents have a gazillion other things going on. Young people, like, their focus should be school, and that they can also learn their advocacy skills through school. So it's like, how can we also, like, as teachers, create positions where young people are giving their opinions and asking critical questions and all the different things. And as also as parents saying, like, hey, have you asked your teacher if you could do that? Like, just a, oh, no,
Yeah,
I didn't
asking
know
those
that I could ask that, yeah. So
Yeah.
some of that, because I think putting a lot of the, like, obviously parenting is very hard. I think putting a lot of weight on parents is, like, not necessarily the solution to all of our problems, right? So I wonder how we can, like, delegate all of the advocacy to the teachers, to the principal, to the students, to the parents, to the, school
Right.
board, to the
The
district. It's like
community.
everyone can be doing a small piece, I think, and it should be if we're in community, like, truly in community together.
Yeah.
Right.
Something to
I
add to
love that.
that. I think
Yes.
about my fourth grader. She had something in her school that she didn't like. And she told me about it. She told us about it. And I could have chosen to, like, hey, like, I'm going to go and, like, call the principal up. But I said, well, what do you think you should do? And, like, I encouraged her, and she's like, well, I'm going to start a petition. I'm going to like do all these things, right? She ended up
Wow.
not having to, because the problem got fixed, because I'm sure other students were saying things, right? And schools listening. But it was because it was, like, for me, like, to Hannah's point of, like, I could have, like, well, I'm going to call up and I'm going to find out. But I paused in that moment, which is something that I feel like I have to actively do as a parent and
Yes.
as a human, of, like, okay, I don't have to jump to fix this, but I can ask her the question and, like, see if she can come up with a solution, and I can partner alongside her to, like, support her and, like, hey, like, if it doesn't work, let me know, and, like, I'll help.
Okay. I heard advocacy, which is one of our values at Sweet Taboos, and then asking the questions that spark that advocacy, that empowerment. I love that. I'm just so immersed in education and the different elements of it. So my next question is, as a teacher, how important is it to know a child's learning style? And is it possible to cater to various learning styles? I asked this one for the child in me, because I struggled in school because the lights were too bright, because there was too much going on. I'm distracted. And there was, like, I wasn't learning the way that they were teaching me. So I'm curious, from your experiences, is that possible?
The answer is yes. And I think it requires us to think more creatively about what a classroom can look like and what a space can look like. So
Yes.
I think about my fourth graders when I was teaching. I mean, every single of my 25 students, in any given year, every single student needed something different. Multiple students were learning in multiple languages, right? It's like,
Wow.
we as teachers have a huge weight and burden of trying to meet every student where they're at. And a lot of that, though, I think, by the time I got to my fifth year, because it really takes till your fifth year to, like, really know what you're doing. I think in teaching, that's, like, another thing we don't talk about enough, but teaching is incredibly difficult. But, by that time, I knew how to, going back to asking questions, like asking my students the question of, like, what do you need right now? I had one student who would actually just, when his reading specialist would come into the classroom to pull him out to read, he was really embarrassed by that, right? Like, he didn't like getting pulled out of class when everyone else got to read in the class, and he would hide under the desk. And so that reading specialist just sat down next to him and just worked with him under the desk and said, you know what? Like, I hear you. Like, we're going to make, we'll make it work then. We're going to do what you need. And then eventually she built enough trust with him that he was like, okay, I see the value in this. I will leave the classroom with you now and we can go get this work done. We do a lot of work with students after school in our programming right now. And we have a program that happens on Monday nights with middle schoolers and high schoolers. And sometimes we have all of them together, 6th through 12th grade, developmentally, very different ages, very different stages of learning. And I think there's, like, another reminder that if students don't feel safe, if they don't feel comfortable, if they don't feel engaged, they're not going to learn anything. So if we need to pause the whole session just to, like, take a brain break, we're going to do that. Even if only 7 students out of 20 need it, it's going to be beneficial for everybody in the room. So it's finding the things that are going to work for every student, and understanding that every student's going to need something different too. and giving yourself grace as a teacher, as a leader, as an adult in the room to say, like, I'm not going to figure this all out in 2 months. It might take a little bit longer than that. But once I do have that information, I can pass that knowledge down to the next adult who's going to be, working with the student. I can share that information with families. I can share that information with, other facilitators that I'm working with so that that student can be successful in different environments. I think it is imperative that we are doing our best to understand how students learn. And then understanding too, like what's actually best for the whole group, even if it doesn't feel like it might be in the moment. If we need to like do a deep breath together, we need to do that.
Yes.
Even though some students are going to giggle through it, like it's still good for their nervous system, so those are some initial thoughts that I have, but yeah, I
That's
do
really
think there's a
good.
huge weight on teachers to do it, and I think it's like imperative that we do as educators. But Rachel, you taught much longer than I did. You got past the 5 year, what I think is the
Yeah.
5 year barrier to get to 10 years. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think okay, so it was maybe my like 5th year. I got a different principal who like I think my first few years it was like, okay, like I thought like as a teacher, like I have to be compliant. I have to make sure that they're meeting all the standards. And obviously big school, joyful and fun was always a part of like my classroom. But it wasn't until I had this principal in particular who challenged me to think about like, okay, we are like thinking about children like the whole child, right? Like they are not just like, all of their like their social emotional, their like and academic, right? Like and also thinking about like students and families as partners, like we're co-creating together. So that was like a shift in my mindset of like, oh, like that's what that can look like. That's what school can look like. And it was just like a slight shift in like how I approached like working with students and working with families. And it was like bringing more of the like, what do students actually want in the classroom, right? That's how you set up the classroom, how you are, um, assessing things, right? All of it. So it was a shift for me that, and again, I don't think I perfected it. I don't think we ever perfect it. And there's a balance too, right? Because I think sometimes it's like, oh, like I want to go so child led, but it's like, well, that's actually not helpful because students still need like structure and like they need to know that they're safe in the space. So yeah. So, but it's like the mindset to me is like just that shift in mindset helps me as a teacher to almost like let go of like fear in a way. Cause it's like as a teacher, I think like I have to make sure they're learning. I have to keep them like that they're like seated and they have to be doing the right things.
It's
And
a lot of pressure.
it is, it is, right? And like I think letting that go of like, oh, like actually it's not like that's not how school should feel for anybody.
Right. Okay, as you were talking, Rachel, a question came to my mind. So Hannah knows, I'm with James Inc. and
Mhm.
we plan on going to the Capitol in March. Last year we went for the first time in
Right.
April. That was
Mhm.
a whole experience, and to be in the rooms with people who are making the policies that
Mhm.
necessarily don't benefit the people they're making them for.
Right.
So the question that just came to my brain cells was, should we advocate at the Capitol to build classrooms that we actually need? A few
Mm.
times since we've been talking, you ladies have stated that not why can't we, but just reiterating, we need to build classrooms that are sufficient for the children and their needs. Like at the daycare or, the early childhood programs, they have a space in for this in the classroom and a space for that, time out and, take a deep breath over here. Why isn't that a continuation as they get older when they really do need that time to breathe, that time to just gather their thoughts and get back in the center of their mind.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like students say that all the time. Like, they're like,
Really?
"Yeah, we just want a space to, like, decompress."
Really?
Yeah, like, they talk
Okay.
yeah. So I think it is something that students, especially as they get out of elementary school, like middle and high school, they see that shift, and they talk a lot about, like, what does wellness look like, for a middle school and our high school or, like, how are we caring for and I think spaces can be co-regulating, a space can be set up in a way that is regulating for a student, and Yeah, I think education advocates would agree.
I think
Marketing
and
ideas.
honestly, on this note too, I think a really fascinating policy piece is the conversation around recess specifically. So,
Mhm.
like, we know all the research says that students should have, like, ample recess every day, like, almost like, I think 2 20-minute sessions at some points in certain age groups.
Mhm.
Mm,
And, well, first off, they, took out recess in middle school, 6th graders were 11, they're not adults by any means. Um, they've actually started to put recess back into middle schools and TPS, which I think is, like,
that's
really
good.
awesome. Some of our change makers groups, specifically at Central Middle School, for example, they brought this up. They said, like, "I need to go outside. Like, I
Mhm,
need to have a time that is, like, a little bit less structured. I can kind of unplug." I learned some of those, like, group game dynamics, which I'm not always
mhm.
getting, which is, like, a really important part of learning and development too.
Mm,
And they were able to advocate for that, and, they had recess
wow.
outside, right? And it's a big task for, again, teachers, again, like, you have to monitor, you have to, like, have your eyes out, like, it's not an
Yeah.
easy thing to run recess, not like you're just, like, letting them go.
Mhm.
There's a lot of monitoring that happens,
Yeah.
but it is interesting to see kind of the, or passing periods are getting short, get shorter, right? And it's like, but
Mhm.
that's the time that students need to regulate, to Rachel's point. And
Right.
and so I think, like, that is such a clear example of me of designing schools that work for students.
Mhm.
And it's funny to me that
Mm.
the policy is not aligning with the research, which obviously happens quite
Mm.
frequently. But, like, we, again, have the research of the power of recess, and and consistently it gets cut from schools. I think that shift is happening now that we're seeing more and more recess happening on a broader scale. Um, but, or even, like, the power of science and social studies, there was a period in time where the content was, like, math and reading. We're gonna do math and reading all day. And it's like, but we
The
know that the
worst.
learning paddles of, like, we gotta do an experiment, we gotta do a hands-on, we gotta see a map, we got, these things are important too. And so I think we do need to
Mm.
lean a little bit more into the research. And I think the research can more and more include student perspectives and parent perspectives, right? Like, if we think about research
Mm.
more broadly, as we're thinking about policy, it's like, I interviewed 100 of my constituents about, you know, recess policies in their schools, and I found out this, right? Versus having to be like a study. I think studies are really important that are scientifically done, and I think those are really important. But let's hold both spaces,
Mhm.
because I think students could give you a ton of data and research on their personal experiences too. And you could have some school sites that say, like, yeah, we tried this new policy, and this is the outcomes. And why not expand those outcomes, or at least try, you know?
Mhm.
So I think that just comes to mind for me as, like, a very specific policy that's about design in schools and scheduling design, right? Like, that's such a like, it feels small, but, like, massive, going from block schedule to 50-minute classes. Like, that was a huge shift. I think there's some pieces that can happen even in a micro level that should be discussed on a policy level too.
Mm.
I think there's
Okay.
exciting opportunities there, is probably what I should say.
Mhm.
Mm. Okay. I'm getting so many ideas. For those who don't know, I am an interior designer, so I'm thinking,
Mm.
could this even happen in a way that allows me to design,
Mhm,
the way that people learn and
mhm.
create that community and also alleviate all the pressure and stress that a teacher has to endure. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, there's just so
Mhm.
many things coming up.
Uh, well, even in terms of design, like physical design too, like, there are so many schools that don't have any windows.
And
They don't have
Yeah.
definitely,
windows. Like,
yeah,
how are we
that's
supposed to learn without the
crazy.
sunlight?
This is
Like,
a prison.
yes, yes. And so
Yeah.
I think about, like, the bond package coming up for TPS that's gonna have, like, some capital improvements, but, like, we need to be aware of that as, like, the
Mm,
community, right? Because it's like, I don't think
Mhm.
any student should learn in a classroom for more than, like, an hour that doesn't have a build. If I were a teacher and didn't have a build, like, a window in my classroom, I would be so sad, and a lot of teachers don't. So, like, that design piece, or, like, plants in the classroom, like,
Mhm.
yes,
what impact does that have? Like, I think it probably would be
yes,
massive. What if we bought all of the classrooms a plant and they have to keep it alive? Like,
yes.
these are so small, but, like,
Uh-huh.
could be transformational. Like, it's cleaning the air, which, like, what
Yep.
impact does that have on student learning? Like, I don't know. I'm sure there's
Oh
research.
my
I don't know.
gosh. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. I'm ready to take over now.
Yeah. Please,
I'm
please.
so
I mean, like,
inspired.
Yes. Well, and the idea is
Mhm.
like you could also just go to your legislature with like, this is what a classroom could look like. Here's some pictures of classrooms that I've seen that I'm like, this is it, right? Like we hear from students that these are really powerful pieces of the classroom,
Mhm.
um, like desk types,
Mhm.
table types, like all those
Yes.
things are really important.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I'm excited. I'm
Good.
excited.
Me too.
So, my last piece with this one, in order to bring this to their attention, how many teachers or just people do you think we need? We definitely need a group of students and parents and
Mhm.
teachers, whoever's available, to go talk about we need to transform the classrooms in
Mhm.
order to really change the way that people are learning.
Mhm.
There's a research number.
Yeah.
There's right? There's like the number.
Mhm.
It's funny because I think one of the numbers that comes to mind is it takes 3.5% of any population to start a revolution,
Oh.
which is
Wow.
like a real research number. Like
Yeah.
if you have a
3.5.
3.5. So if we look at the population of Tulsa Metro is 416,000. I'm pretty sure the like actual research number is it takes 3.5% of those people to be like protesting for the revolution for it to happen. Not that we're having a revolution here, but like, you know, but
Really
like
like
if
a
we think about like TPS, if there's 33,000 students,
Mhm.
which I think is maybe the number, I could be wrong on that.
Mhm.
What's
Wow.
3.5% of that? I don't know. It's just such a tangible number. Obviously, that's like
Mhm.
still a lot of
1,000.
people. How
Yeah.
many?
Well, I think I did the math right. Like a
Yeah.
little like
Yeah, that makes
1,155.
sense.
That feel right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that makes sense.
That's a lot to organize, but it needs to happen.
But it's
But
small. It's over
yeah,
time. Over
yeah,
time.
it's
You
over
just listening
time and
sessions.
Mm.
we have 700 students go through our programs every year, right? So it's a
Wow.
feasible number of students to like conceptualize. Not that all of them have the same opinions about everything, right?
Right.
We never give our opinions to young people. We always just wait to see what their opinions are when they're presented with any type of information. But um
Mm.
I think it's
I
cool to
love
see
that.
that as a tangible number, right? And then, I think at the policy level and with elected officials too, it's a little tough because I think that some of them hear from like 5 people total and they're like, well, I heard from 5 people that I should
Right,
vote
it's
no
not
on this.
enough.
I'm voting no. And you're like, oh, whoa, that's not 3.5% of your constituents. Um, so I think we
Mm.
should hold the bar a little higher for them too, of like, you might need to hear from a couple more people because I'm sure there's a lot of opinions on this.
Mhm.
And how do you get all those opinions in one room is I think there's an opportunity
Mm.
for civil discourse and there's an opportunity for, yeah, a lot of good
Okay.
conversations come out of that, but,
Yeah.
expecting more from our community too, like, I think our community has opinions, they wanna share them. We should get as
Yeah.
many people there as possible to
Mhm.
share those opinions, but
Yep.
Hmm.
I think we get a bus of 75 to the Capitol. We can start with 75, you know?
That's a great start, first of all. Okay.
Great.
I
We
love
did.
that. I love that segment. So let's move into the secrets of teaching. You brought up the 5-year barrier, and I have 2 questions that pertain to teacher burnout, but before we get to that, could you explain the taboo part of teaching that we don't know about?
Oh my
Whoa.
gosh. Rachel, do it.
The taboo part. Oh my gosh, I don't know. Is it
All of it? No, I'm just
I
kidding.
mean,
All of it.
yeah, I think for teacher burnout, like that part is so real. Like,
Mm,
and I don't know if that's the taboo part of it is like not talking about it,
mhm. Yeah,
or,
for the most part.
um, yeah. Also, like, I just watched Abbott Elementary the other day. Do you watch the show?
What
Abbott
is it?
Elementary? Abbott Elementary?
No, I
Oh,
haven't
I
Oh
heard
my
of
see.
it.
gosh. Truly, it's about a school in Philadelphia, and, like,
Mm,
as a former teacher, it, like, just, like, hits every, like, part of my heart. I'm like, "This is, like, perfectly it's explained, like, what it's like to be in a school building, to feel
mm.
burnout, but then also to, like, find
Wow.
hope in the work you're doing." Yeah.
Oh.
So that's coming, like, to my mind of, like, just
Mhm,
a perfect example of, like, what it's like to be a teacher, because it's really hard, but then
mhm,
why you keep doing it.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. And I think so much of like for me personally, like I think about like, my last year, what really like brought a lot of joy to me was like we're doing change makers. I was a change makers coach and it was like, oh, I get to work with young people. I get to like partner with them. They're creating something. We're excited about it, just like energy and momentum around it. And I just
mhm.
wish, and I think that I want to like highlight that, like, I think there are a lot of teachers who feel that every day, too.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it's like a constant, like, having to like find the joy, like, truly, like, how am I finding the joy in what I'm doing?
Mhm.
And so much of it is like when you're working with the kids, like, that's where the joy is. uh,
Mhm.
so yeah.
The adults burn you
Mm.
out. It's actually the adults in the
Yeah.
system that are harder than the students in the system.
So
I think
true.
something they say about teaching is like you make thousands of decisions in like a hour-long period or something, which our brains are just like not wired to do. But I even think about like teaching a lesson. It's like, okay, I'm teaching how to divide up on the board. I've got my board here. There's one student crawling over here because we're on the carpet. They're disengaged, right? I've got one student playing with toys here. I got these two students whispering to each other the whole time. And so like as a teacher, I'm deciding, okay, like what's my focus here? Is the
Mhm.
student who's playing with dolls still focused on the lesson? If so, I'm not going to worry about that. That's not actually my battle, right? And I'm trying to decide
Mm.
what decision to make in that moment. And that is exhausting, right? And then also, you don't
Yes.
get enough sleep the night before. You're
Yeah.
not regulated. I was thinking about this before this conversation. Like,
Yeah.
if I didn't get enough sleep the day before, something that wouldn't have made me angry or annoyed the day before, like somebody, a student came up to me during recess and wanted to, and is telling me about how so and so is being mean and tattling on them and all these things. Like the day before, I was regulated, so I could be like, well, what can we do about that? Like, what do you think is going to be? And then the next day, I'm not regulated, and I'm like, I need you to like go play. Like I need you to go play, right? And so it's like there's just it's just so human, right? It's like so human to be a teacher. And
Mm.
one of my like very silly but maybe serious policy proposals is that every teacher gets a sabbatical after their 5th year. When I
Mhm.
took a year off teaching to come to Changemakers, I like now I've been out of the classroom for 3 years now. I could easily go back. Like I feel way more regulated. I feel ready to go. Like even after year one, I was like, I could go
Inspired.
back to the classroom now. Like I feel like more whole. Like I got like just a little break. And then it was like, and the only other job I imagine myself doing out of Changemakers is going back to the classroom. Like I really love it. I love it. But, by the end of that 5th year, you're kind of like, whew, man, can I give 100% myself every day still?
Yeah, it's every day.
Every day, 100%. You got to give
On
Throughout the
100%.
year.
on top of, like, teachers are also humans and have
Yeah.
families and
Family.
have life things that are happening, right? Like,
Right.
yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot.
Yeah.
It is a lot. So, how can parents support teachers in burnout?
Wow. Yeah. I think this is probably a hot take, but I kind of love when like I got like a small little gift during the holidays. Like it was kind of nice, right? Like it's like not big, but like my students would go to like the dollar store and just like use some of their allowance, to, like pick out things. And like I just thought that was so like a nice handwritten note from a parent during the holiday. Like that was just like
Cherry on top.
yeah, it was. It was just nice, right? Like I just got like, thank you so much for, teaching my child and taking care of them every day, literally those. And I'm a words of affirmation girl too. So that's maybe where I sit with that. But like truly just like those small moments of thanks, was really super fueling for me. And also going to conferences, parent teacher conferences. I used to like have a goal of always meeting 100% of my like parents for every or guardians for every conference. And so having that one-on-one FaceTime even for 15 minutes like was huge for me. So
Mm.
I really think
Alright.
that and it's like I knew I was in partnership with families was like a really big point of pride.
Mhm.
Yeah. But yeah,
Okay.
Rachel, what about you?
I agree with all those things that you mentioned. I think if there's the opportunity to volunteer
Mm.
time, doing that, whether that looks like I went into my daughter's kindergarten class this week because they were doing testing and they needed someone to watch the class while she was able to go take small groups of testing. So like hopefully my hope was like, okay, if I can go give like an hour and a half and hopefully like that like alleviate some stress for her that she can get that done.
Mhm.
If those kinds of opportunities are available. And then asking like at the school, like, hey, how can I volunteer? Right. And maybe it's not the teacher because sometimes teachers don't know
Mhm.
but like asking the principal to maybe like, share what that could look like. I
Mm.
think, yeah, that's a
Okay.
really helpful way.
I heard engagement and partnership, and that's
Mhm.
what this whole episode is about, bridging
Mhm.
generations and partnering for change. So as we come to the end, I have a few more powerful questions for you, lady. So how do we bridge the differences between the generations in efforts to equip the youth with healthy role models and confidence
Mhm.
to lead? It's
Oof.
kind of a long question.
Rachel, take it away.
Yeah. I think a lot of it's like adult mindset, right? Of
Mhm.
like shifting your mindset.
Mhm.
A tool we use that Hannah can also probably elaborate on too is the youth voice ladder. Of like and like the starts at the bottom of like manipulation, right? Adults you like working with young people, like they're really just manipulating young people to like do what they want them to do. And then the
Mhm.
top is at like youth adult equity, where like adults and youth are like adults are listening to young people and then providing resources and supports for them to do the things that they want to do, right? And that's where, and obviously like there's lots in between there too, and like sometimes you sit in a space where like youth are just giving advice to adults or like a youth perspective, but that youth adult equity is like just such a special space to be in, and it feels good. I just think about like our leadership council is a group of youth and adults, and they, you know, the young people come up with the ideas, and then adults are like, okay, like I'm going to connect you, I'm going to provide these resources. We did a legislative lunch in October. I think about like, right, the young people had the idea, they came up with the topics and the questions, and then adults were helping providing the space. The adults were helping providing like, here's a framework because we've done this before.
Mhm.
So I just think about adults and like adults shifting their mindsets of like that young people are competent and capable, right? I think that's a taboo kind of
Mhm.
mindset that people don't necessarily have. They think like I have to teach them and
Mhm.
they need to know. And like there's some validity too of like they don't know everything because they're
Right.
still learning and they you do have
Mhm.
experience, but also their experiences are very valid and
Mhm.
we need to honor them and respect them.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agree. 100%.
I think it's really exciting that that Tulsa in general is focusing a lot of energy, especially with the transition with a new mayor to like a lot of like youth partnership and youth
Mhm.
adult partnership specifically. I think about the Children's Cabinet. I think about Tulsa Public Schools and our Youth Advisory Council that we're partnering with them to support a lot of these students coming together to help create policy proposals. I think
Wow.
to Rachel's point, like we you know young people have there's a lot of things to learn, right? We need to provide young people with models on how to do some of those things, right? You wouldn't know how to do legislative lunch if you've never seen one before. We can't expect
Right.
young people to just like be able to execute a legislative lunch on their own.
Mhm.
But like some policy things that I think are really interesting that like have really helped me check my mindset as an adult is like I have asked students before, and we get these conversations a lot with students around like security in schools, right? Students right now are growing up in a space where like school shootings are like a very real possibility. They're hearing about school shootings happening across the country. They feel unsafe, in schools way more than I did when I was in high school, right? That was not my experience.
Mhm.
And so, as an adult, I don't love putting more like metal detectors in schools. I don't love like kind of the school to prison pipeline feeling of like
Mm.
putting more, like I don't know, like weaponry in school. Like I don't love that because I know what that looks like and what that feels like. But when I talk to young people pretty consistently, they ask for more security in schools. They would prefer metal detectors over the wands because they just feel like it's like going to the airport, or like going to
Mhm.
city hall, you have to walk through a metal detector. So why shouldn't we have to too? So those perspectives have like shifted my mindset a little bit. I didn't grow up in an era where I was scared of gun violence in my school building, right? Like
Mhm.
and even though I have some, like, adult understanding of, like, the research behind security in schools and, like, the research behind, like, policing in schools, right? Like, I know that. I don't want to, like, totally knock down or, like, invalidate the feeling of like, feeling unsafe in schools right now.
Mhm.
Um
Yeah.
because it's real. It's a real feeling, and I think we should validate that and provide some, like and ask some, like, questions too, like, "Hey, does it ever make you feel unsafe with more police in schools?" And they might say, "No, I actually feel much safer," and we have to say, "Okay." Like, that's a
Mhm.
reality. Um, so yeah, I think about that as a time where I've really checked my understanding of, like, what it
Mhm.
means to be a young person because their experiences are real. Like, they're experts in
Mhm.
their own experience, and we say that all the time.
Right.
Um, and even if I have, like, an opinion or a bias against that, it doesn't
Mhm.
that I can't use that opinion to invalidate. This comes with like even simple question asking, right? Instead of saying like, hey, have you ever thought about doing this specific thing? Asking you an open-end question. Well, how do you think that we could fix that?
Mhm.
Or what might be the next action step? You know,
Mm.
those are slightly less leading questions that
Mhm.
can create like a whole new world if we listen effectively too.
Listen effectively. I write that down. So many nuggets. So, what does effective leadership look like in a rapidly changing educational landscape?
I think it's the listening, I mean, like, kind of is the thread that I'm seeing and hearing and feeling. It's really, I think that, like, when I think about leaders that I've had, principals, or even when I'm like working with like school district leaders, the ones who I leave feeling like most like empowered and like most like heard by are the ones that are like truly listening. And then off, like, they maybe are gonna provide a rationale for their decision making and things like that, but they have at least listened and heard me.
Mhm.
I think is like the most important part, because I think especially public education, it truly is, it's about the people, right? It's for people.
Mhm.
Um, so I think that that piece is like so, so crucial.
Mm. Yes, I 100% agree. You teachers, I'm so grateful for teachers because, again, as I stated earlier, I was a student
Mhm,
that needed a little more assistance in whatever areas, but that didn't happen. So today, as I'm looking at the landscape and how I can play my part, I'm like, okay, this is what I needed. This is what I can provide, and just internalizing the healthy parts of it and creating more from that.
mhm,
So my last question is, in what spaces are youth already leading change, but adults aren't listening? I know we just talked about how effectively listening is a key portion of bridging the
mhm,
generations and creating the
mhm,
change. But what's currently going on now?
Let's give shout outs first before I go into where they're not being listened to. I think that this year more than ever, we have felt more momentum coming from like the ground up, specifically from students. And I feel like this year more than ever too, we're hearing more adults say yes. So my big thing is like, the reality is like students will come to us with ideas all the time. And I think that there's always a hesitancy or like a gut reaction of like, ooh, what's the liability there? Or like, and it's our job to like
Yeah.
kind of be consistent with that. But I have felt this year, I think our partners at Tulsa Public Schools, our partners at Union, our partners at the city, like they're willing to say yes to young people and
mhm,
more, right? Which I just think is like a really cool trend we're seeing. And I want to shout that out because
That's good.
we have to
mhm,
recognize progress, right? Our
Mhm.
vision with Tulsa Makers is a Tulsa that is a model city for youth-driven impact. We want people to come to Tulsa and be like, that is the model. We want to replicate that in our city. We want young people engaging
Mhm.
the exact same way. And like
Mhm.
after 10 years of like trying to execute on this vision, like I feel like we get closer every day, which I think is like really, really cool. And there is always room for improvement. I
Right.
think the biggest thing that comes to mind for me and Rachel, I'm sure has some different examples or just different ideas too, is like I think what's happening right now is that we're creating a lot of spaces for young people, but within those spaces, we're still doing a lot of that kind of like leading question or like, I'm going to decide what content is most important, or I'm going to decide what's most relevant to you instead of asking the students first, like, actually, what's
What do
most
you
relevant to
need?
you? What do
Mhm.
you need? Yeah. How can we help you? Or how can we partner with you? Right. Um, so I think it's those like micro interactions or even like broadly as we're like planning programs, like how do we ground them in youth voice, choice, and power? And I think change makers can always do better at this too. I think this is for everyone. As we're planning for some of our policy programs, like how do we actually ensure that students feel prepared to talk about policy, prepared to make proposals? How do we prepare students without giving them our opinions or our ideas about what we think the best proposal is going to be, what we think the best vote is going to be, right? Because that's not why we're here. That's not why we're
Right.
here. I don't care how you vote. I don't care what your proposal is. I want you to have the ability to create a proposal and feel confident and passionate about it and present it. So
Mm.
I think we're now in a space where we're creating a ton of spaces, but we need to like really hone in and check ourselves as adults of whether or not they are grounded in youth voice, choice, and power every single time. And there's always growth there. We always have
Mhm.
room to grow.
Yes. Beautifully articulated.
Mhm.
And your thoughts, Rachel?
No, I agree completely. And I think to Hannah's point, like I think young people have been leading for, since the beginning of time. It is just now progress of like adults like shifting mindsets is just takes time.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
That's been the connection through the whole conversation is the mindset of
Mhm.
partnership and change, and that effectively listening. These are all key points to bridging the generations and
Mhm.
partnering for that change.
Yeah.
What are some takeaways we want to leave for the listeners and viewers before we leave today, or a takeaway? Because there's already so much stuff
Yeah.
that is going to take us further into the future in a positive way. So one takeaway to leave.
I think my dual one is young people are capable of anything as long as we set the bar high, and help them to achieve it.
Mm-hmm.
I think adults say yes more. We need to
Say
say
yes.
yes more. We need to shift our mindsets of feeling scared or hesitant, to
Mm,
understanding that young people are capable, they're powerful, they have so many good ideas, they are passionate. We do not have to lower the bar for them ever. It should always stay high, and do whatever we can to help prepare students for the future. They're for their now, for their present, for their future, all of the things. Something we say a lot is that young people aren't future leaders, they're leaders right now. So
mm.
mindset, we're not waiting for
Yeah, the mindset.
yeah,
Yes.
it's right now.
That's really good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Period.
Period.
It's not the most concise final take, but
It's a great
Yes.
exclamation point.
Yes.
Exclamation point.
Did
love it.
you have a takeaway, Rachel?
No, I mean, I think that that's it. I think Hannah really got it. I
Yeah.
think adults just like be open. And for me, the thing that like I have to constantly like in parenthood, in my work as a teacher, in my work, now working with Tulsa change makers, is like pause before you go to fix, because
Mhm.
the young person
Pause.
probably has the answer. You
Mm.
just can be a support to help them get there if needed.
Mhm. Mm.
So that's my
Wow. You two have been amazing. I really am
So
so
fun.
inspired from this conversation, and I don't even you don't even know. I really needed it. So this is
Yay.
pick me up, and it's going to get me through the next few days. So
Me too.
thank you
Me
so much
too.
for
Yeah.
coming to the Sweet Taboos podcast. It's truly been an honor to get to talk to you in this way about bridging generations and partnering for
Mhm.
change. We really need it. It's 2026 and we still have much more to do and we're making progress. So I'm really glad to hear it and have your presence here.
We're honored to be here. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for the space.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you all for listening and watching and joining us. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Your support and love is always appreciated. And until
Bye.
next time, stay sweet.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Okay.